even after I'd left the religion, I could even be shunned by people who were not Jehovah's Witnesses. Before he was
Before. All
disfellowship,
right.
he was a top guy in the organization. He was actually
Right.
a secretary overseer. When he got disfellowship, he married my mother, but his behavior wasn't good. So I would start praying and they'll start laughing. So that is the mother who died. The elders went to the funeral.
Yeah.
And instructed the man not to come out of his house. She loved people who are not Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay.
So she could even tell me to say, Dominic, you wouldn't have found me if this policy of marrying within the Jehovah's Witness was lifted today. You can't leave the organization without being hurt, even
True.
when you have calculated all your moves. He's taking his own body to the kingdom hall just so that he can have that job.
But you can't do that, said one of the critics.
It doesn't bother me.
Really? Again? Really?
Look at that little enemy of God.
Somehow we dilly-and-dally. Takes us years, and we wonder why.
What are you waiting for?
Hello, wonderful people of the internet. Welcome back to the Anthony Morris Returns channel. My name is Chaka, and welcome to the JW Africa series, the series in which I examine how the Jehovah's Witnesses teaching impact Jehovah's Witnesses who are based in Africa. And on this episode, I'm privileged to interview a fellow ex-Jehovah's Witness who is based in Zambia, and I'm happy to welcome Mchilampondo Mapulanga. Welcome to the channel.
Thank you, Chaka.
The place to begin with, Mchilampondo, really, is how you got involved with the Jehovah's Witnesses religion.
Yeah, so I got involved when I was very young. When I was in my 5th grade, I had 2 friends who were Jehovah's Witnesses from Malawi. It is quite interesting that those were they were like the grandsons of a man who was chased by Kamuzubanda.
Right. And just for context, Kamuzubanda was, a lot of people considered him a dictator in Malawi, and he was actually the leader of the country when there was this great persecution of Jehovah's Witnesses in that country, the persecution which could easily have been stopped by the governing body. Ray Franz talks about this in his book, Crisis of Conscience. It was a case of just allowing the Malawian Jehovah's Witnesses to hold this party card, which was meaningless because there was just one party in the country. And yet the governing body could not allow Jehovah's Witnesses to have that, and it resulted in a lot of persecution. Very brutal persecution. So
those Jehovah's Witnesses who were chased from Malawi, they settled in Zambia, in an area where I grew up from. Right. So they're the ones who actually introduced me to the organization.
Right. And so you were in the 5th grade. So how old would you have been at the time?
I was 11 years.
So very young. Super early, and it just shows, I think, something about the Jehovah's Witnesses, that they are ruthless in their recruitment. They don't take any prisoners, man, woman, child. They'll just go for it.
Anyone vulnerable.
Exactly. So what was the attraction to the religion at 11 years old?
I have to be honest, the behavior of those 2 gentlemen, they are gentlemen now. They even graduated from UNZA, by the way, both of them.
Right.
So they were very intelligent. They could listen to the teachers. They were obedient, so to say. So I was attracted because myself, I was not yet at school. So I said, yeah, I want to be like you. Okay, their behavior was quite outstanding, I have to be honest.
Right. So these were fellow 11-year-olds that were trying to recruit you into the religion.
No, they were older. Actually, they were 3 years older than me, because if you understand, in a rural area like that, people used to start school when they are still not very young. They could start school at maybe 10 or 11.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So myself, I came from urban, moved to a rural area. So I started school earlier. So I was
Right.
learning together with people who were older than me, like 3 years older than me.
Okay. So basically you have these older chaps and then they're trying to recruit you into this religion that you have no knowledge about. So were their attempts to recruit you successful?
To some extent, it's like they planted a seed
Right.
because that was my initial encounter with Jehovah's Witnesses. My entire family, not even a single person from my family is a witness. So I encountered them for the first time, and I started now distributing the books that they were giving me. I
Right.
was now I became this agent who could go to my family and say, "Look, I learned something at school."
Right. So it's not that I learned something in history or I learned how to solve these maths equations. It was I've got this propaganda material. Obviously, you didn't view it as propaganda material at the time,
Yeah,
but yeah, your focus was shifting from why you were going to
yeah.
school in the first place.
I'm sure, Chaka, you can relate in Zambia. Most denominations they respect Jehovah's Witnesses a lot.
Yeah.
So they really it's it's funny. I would tell you, even after I'd left the religion, I could even be shunned by people who were not Jehovah's Witnesses. Be like, why would you stop being a Jehovah's Witness? I've stopped. No, I'm sure you're a bad person.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's
So
strange.
that's a picture
It's strange.
that they have. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting that you say that because I remember being criticized by people when I was a Jehovah's Witness, friends who knew. I mean, I had
Yeah.
friends who were not Jehovah's Witnesses,
Mhm.
and they knew I was a Jehovah's Witness. So when I said something political, they were like, "How can you be talking about politics? You're a Jehovah's Witness," and they were not even
Yeah.
Jehovah's Witnesses. And the other thing is, I like listening to national anthems from different countries, and there's ones
Yes.
that I like more than others.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll just start listening to these different national anthems, and then somebody would come and say, "But you're a Jehovah's Witness. You're not supposed to be listening to the national anthem." And this person is not even a Jehovah's Witness. So that's how.
Yeah. Yeah. They even knows they know your policies. They know
Yes,
what you're not supposed to do. Yeah.
exactly. So there are a lot of people who are pseudo Jehovah's Witnesses, if you will, in Zambia. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
They've got that respect for the org.
Yeah. So let's get to you eventually becoming a fully fledged Jehovah's Witness rather. So how did that come about?
Yeah. So fast forward now. It is now from 2005. Fast forward to 2008. My mother got married.
Right.
Can I say my mother was dating? No.
There's nothing wrong with dating, even if
Okay.
you're a
All right.
woman with children.
Yeah. So my
These
mother
things are
started
only
dating
frowned
this.
upon in the religion.
So my mother started dating this man. It happened that he was disfellowshipped
Right.
and he couldn't find a woman in the org,
Right.
in the GW. So he
Right.
decided to look elsewhere. That's how he started now dating my mother until they got married. So
And at this point, your mother was not a Jehovah's Witness, and she had
no,
no
no, 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 no.
connection. She had no connection to
Mm,
the religion. Right.
yeah.
Okay.
He worked so hard. He managed to indoctrinate my mother by using um, some women in the JW congregation where he was congregating. He was
Right.
disfellowshipped, but he had people who were assigned to indoctrinate my mother.
Right.
When my mother got indoctrinated to the blame, she started also pulling us. But we were so hesitant
Right.
because I had my own religion.
Right. So at this point, how old were you? Right.
At this point, I was 13 now.
Okay. So
I was
so you're still a very young person.
Yeah, I was still young.
Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah, and what was your religion, and why was it difficult for you to accept the Jehovah's Witness indoctrination?
It's something that I would call that the way we view it. Okay, there was the name, which I didn't like.
It-
Chitawa.
yeah. So
So
for context, the Jehovah's Witnesses in Zambia for a very long time, they were known as the Watchtowers. It has to do with something historical. There was somebody, I can't remember his name. We used to study this in history, but in the early 1910s, there was a guy who was like he brought the Jehovah's Witness religion, to Zambia, so to speak, and he started an organization called the Watchtower Movement, and because of him, Jehovah's Witnesses in Zambia historically were called watchtowers, and in the local language they would just translate that to chitawala. So it's kind of like a pejorative, and obviously Jehovah's Witnesses don't like to be called that now.
So I didn't like the name.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was invited for my first Kingdom Hall meeting, everyone, because even when my mother got married to him, we were still we were still not comfortable staying with our stepfather. So he invited me when I was staying with my grandmother.
So what was the discomfort in living with this man who's now married your mom?
A lot. It happened that he progressed very well in the organization.
Right. After he was disfellowshipped?
Before he was disfellowshipped.
All right. Mm-hmm.
He was a top guy in the organization. He was actually a secretary overseer.
Right. Okay. I might even know him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was a secretary overseer, but in Chichewa.
Chichewa is just one of the local languages in Zambia, in case people are wondering. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he actually claimed that he was being persecuted by his brothers, and they plotted for him to be disfellowshipped.
Right.
So when he got disfellowshipped, he married my mother, but his behavior wasn't good. The first thing, I don't know whether I can mention this, he refused to pay for our school fees. That time, our school was still not free. He was saying Armageddon is coming soon, so there's no need for us to be educated. He was greedy. He had all the bad traits that you can mention. So he invited me for the first meeting. I was impressed to see young boys able to read, able to answer. I was impressed to see a kingdom hall, a modern kingdom hall in the middle of a bush.
Right.
Yeah, so there were a lot of things that really impressed me. Later on, fast forward, I was sent to a school where I started living with people who were witnesses.
Okay, so how did that come about? Was that a boarding school, or was it just an ordinary day school?
It was an ordinary day school, but I had to live with a family that were Jehovah's Witnesses.
So these are people that you're not related to?
Yes.
And were they
related? They were related to my stepfather.
All right. Okay.
So he sent me to them after I went to secondary.
So why were you sent to live? Why could you not just live with your family and go to school from the family home?
The school was very far. Was far from where my mother and my stepfather were staying. So I had to go there and camp. So they said, okay, bring him. We'll be keeping him as long as he will be a witness. He will be coming with us for meetings. That was the condition.
Right.
The condition that you become a watchtower. And I said, as long as I go to school, cool, I'm cool with it.
Right. So I'm just curious about this. Was there no possibility for you to attend a school near where you lived, so that?
No, there was no school near where I live.
Right. Okay. So it
But
was a
for
it was
three
a
years,
logistical issue. Yeah.
yes, for 3 years they failed to indoctrinate me.
Right. But you were going to the meetings
Yes, I was going to the
that was a
meeting, but I was
condition. Yeah.
stubborn. Yes,
Yeah.
I was
And
stubborn.
what is it that you didn't like apart from the name? The watchtower in the local language name.
Yeah,
What is it that you didn't like about the religion that made it difficult for you to get indoctrinated?
yeah. Most Jehovah's Witnesses, that side, they were very stubborn.
So you found them stubborn.
I found them stubborn, and it is funny that they also found me stubborn. But
So were there some doctrines that you just could not accept, um, or was it just a case of you were just not keen on the religion?
there were some things. Although since that time I was young, I couldn't dig deeper the way I can do right now. But there are things that were just off. For example, I was staying with three of my age mates there
Yeah.
where I was being kept. They would serve Shima. Then me, I was raised in a background of Christianity in a church. So I would start praying, and they would start laughing.
Right. So yeah, Shima is the
Staple
traditional
food.
meal, the staple food that's eaten in Zambia. So people eat it usually for lunch and for dinner, or the evening meal, supper. Um, Pretty much every day. Okay, so I think this is one of the strangest things about the Jehovah's Witness religion, is that they do not acknowledge other people's prayers. So if a Jehovah's Witness goes to any other religious institution, even let's say they go for a funeral or a wedding in a church from which belongs to another religion, they're not even allowed to say amen. See, a simple thing as to say amen, and they basically do not acknowledge other people's prayers. Whereas when Jehovah's Witnesses are trying to indoctrinate other people, even if this person belongs to another religion, they're baptized in that religion, and they even hold a rank in that religion, the Jehovah's Witnesses will want to be the ones that are leading the prayer and representing that person in the prayer, and then they will expect that person to say amen to their prayer, whereas they don't reciprocate that. And I found this really, really strange. And it's interesting you say that, because I remember many years ago when I was still in Zambia, I had this friend of mine. He was a very zealous Jehovah's Witness. He was pioneering at the time. I just finished school, and he started having conversations with this man who was a pastor, and they were having like really, really nice conversations. And the man was a pastor, very well respected in his church and all that. And actually even respected in the community, but he indulged them. He allowed them to have these conversations. So on this one occasion, they were having this conversation, and the conversation seemed to go really, really well. And then the man said, "Well, can I offer a prayer?" And then he started praying, and they were laughing. And then he noticed that they were laughing, while he was praying, and he was furious, and he didn't, and that was the end of their conversation. So I'm not surprised that was the experience you had with these. Were they teenagers at the time?
Yeah, they were teenagers.
Yeah. Okay. So you noticed the disrespect for your religious beliefs.
Yeah, they disrespected my religious beliefs. Then there are a lot that I can mention, but what was more, I would say, triggering to me, that made me not to be indoctrinated for 3 years that I stayed with them, was we went to a funeral of someone who disassociated himself, someone who decided to stop being a Jehovah's Witness.
Right.
This man, when he was a witness, he was working in the bank. He was a top guy in the bank. So when he retired, he got his money, his package. Part of his package he invested. He gave it to the watchtower.
Right.
He gave part of a plot, part of the land to them. A
Mm-hmm.
big part of land, not just a small part of land, with a
Right.
stream of
Right.
water. Yeah.
Wow.
He gave it to the watchtower. Then he later realized, after, you know how watchtower operates, when
Mm-hmm.
you give them land, they have to make sure that legally they possess it, so that even when you want to
Yes.
change your mind,
Yes.
nothing can happen.
Mm-hmm.
So they got the land. So when he realized that this is not the truth, he said,
Mm-hmm.
"You can have the land, it's fine. I still have my part, but I'm not just going to be a witness."
Mm-hmm.
Actually, this man had the background of witness. The
Mm-hmm.
mother was indoctrinated, so the mother died later,
Yes.
and the funeral was for the Jehovah's Witnesses because she was still a witness.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the mother who died.
Mm-hmm.
The elders went to the funeral
Yeah.
and instructed the man not to come out of his house, to say, "You are disfellowshipped, so you don't have to be here at the funeral." He said, "How can you stop me from going to my mother's funeral?"
That is ridiculous. Utterly
Yeah.
ridiculous, but again, not surprising with this religion.
So I was like, "What? Why did you do that?" And
Mm.
they had all reasons to back him. Now, what really frustrated me is this reason. So the one who was keeping me was actually a ministerial servant by that time, and I asked him to say, "Why did you treat that man that way?
Mm-hmm.
How can you stop someone to attend his own mother's funeral?" And the funeral was held at his own place.
Yeah. So had they built a kingdom hall on this land that he'd given
Yes,
them for free? Okay. Yeah.
yes.
So on his own land, at his own mother's funeral, and he's not allowed.
So this is the answer he was giving those two teenagers, to say,
Mm-hmm.
you listen. This is the example. If someone is touching um, feces,
Mm-hmm.
okay, then he tries to greet you, what would you do? "Hi, that is disgusting. I can't greet them." Ah, that's the same. You shouldn't greet someone who is disfellowshipped.
Okay,
That's
but they're
all.
happy. So they're happy to touch the feces when it comes to property, real estate, but when it comes
Yes.
to
Mm,
just showing basic humanity and supporting somebody who's lost a loved one in death, then it's feces, right? And we're not gonna touch it.
yeah, it's faces.
Yeah.
He was not supposed to show up. They never wanted even to see his face at his own mother's funeral. At his own place, the funeral was held right at at his own place, because he was the one who was keeping the mother. And
That
I
is
was
mad.
like, "I can't join you. I can't be a shower, like, guys, if that's how you operate." I
Yeah,
can't.
and
So for
and
3 years, I
yeah.
couldn't.
And it's good that you had such critical thinking skills at a very young age, because this is the reason why they target young people, as you said earlier, that these people are vulnerable, that they haven't developed their critical thinking skills, and they would easily just accept anything that's being presented to them by somebody who's logical and persuasive, which the Jehovah's Witnesses try to do. But so 3 years you're being stubborn. They're trying to suck you into this thing. So eventually, what made you crack and
What made
accept the
me
religion?
crack is anxieties. As you have
Right.
said, they target people that are vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a lot of ambitions when I was completing school. So I wasn't seeing them being fulfilled.
Right.
So each passing time, I was becoming so anxious. I was worried
Mm-hmm.
about my family. I was worried, oh, am I going to get to the university? I had
Mm-hmm.
a lot of worries.
Mm-hmm.
So my curiosity also, apart from just having anxieties, I had the curiosity for reading.
Right.
Yeah, and when you like reading,
Mm-hmm.
you can just read anything that that is
Yeah.
free.
Yeah,
because
and I
books
think
are expensive. Yeah.
yes, and I think this is one of the reasons why the Jehovah's Witnesses have been so successful in Africa. Is in Africa, it's not like in other parts of the world, in Europe, in America, where you can just go to a library and obtain most books you'd be looking for free. If you can buy it, or even if you can't obtain it from the library, you can easily buy things. It doesn't cost you that much if you were to order something from Amazon. In Africa, that's not the case. You don't have that easy access to books. So when you have a religion like the Jehovah's Witnesses who are just handing out this free literature, it's just it's a gold mine, isn't it? And that is the attraction. That is the pure attraction for a lot of people who don't have access to reading materials.
So I liked reading the Awake. So
The
I
time
like that.
the awake used to have some substance.
Yes, the science there. I enjoyed reading the science.
Yeah.
I remember there was a time I was when I was writing my English exams. I used to read a lot of Awake magazines, and people would be like, "Why do you read Awake?" This helps me improve my English. And in some exams, we could even find Awake magazine in the article part. In final exam, grade 12.
Seriously. So you would
Yeah,
have quotes from the Awake magazine in an exam
in an
paper.
exam. Mm.
That is funny.
Yeah, they could
That is
just
very funny.
they could just get an article from the Awake magazine, then they bring it as in
Like
comprehension.
comprehension.
Yeah,
Right.
in summary, and you have to comprehend the Awake magazine answer.
Yeah, the educators in Zambia have become very lazy. That never happened when I was at school. I'm a few years older than you, so I think when I was at school, I don't remember anything like that happening, or even like previous
It
years.
actually happened from the Awake magazine 2009.
Madness.
So that's what also was prompting me to read a lot of Awake magazines. No, but I
Right.
didn't like the Watchtower.
Because it's so doctrine, isn't it?
Yes, but fast forward in 2016. Now in 2014, I moved to the Copper Belt. That is the second largest province in Zambia, right?
Yes.
So there, I left my church. I did it voluntarily. I said, let me go and try the Watchtower. Since I had this background with them already, I tried it. I tried
So
the Watchtower.
what church did you use to attend?
This is the biggest Protestant church in Zambia, the UCZ. It's called United Church of Zambia.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, the difference with other Pentecosts is just the Trinity, because they take the Trinity so seriously. That's the
Right.
backbone of their teaching. Yeah. So I got frustrated in my church. Then I said, let me try the Watchtower this time.
What was it you found frustrating about your church?
What I found frustrating was the lack of a proper program when preaching. Someone could just preach whatever comes in their head. They would not even quote any scripture whatsoever.
Okay, so you were kind of disillusioned with the way the services were being conducted in this church,
Yes.
the United Church of Zambia. So then you said, let me try the Watchtower.
Let me try the Watchtower. Maybe I had the view that maybe here in the Copper Belt they are a bit different.
Right, because it's an urban area.
Yes, because it's an urban area. So I said, maybe they can be different and better.
Right.
And it was a self-fulfilling prophecy.
But you can't do that, said one of the critics.
It doesn't bother me.
Really? Again? Really?
Look at that little enemy of God.
Somehow we dilly and dally. Takes us years, and we wonder why.
What are you waiting for?